Hey, and welcome back. This is the Scaling Secrets podcast where we talk about scaling your business to seven figures, eight figures, and beyond. And we're here with Joseph Gissy from tactivewealth.com. Now, Joseph is a multifaceted professional, and he has expertise in business coaching and entrepreneurship and wealth management, and he serves as the CEO and founder of Tactive Advisors LLC. You can find them at tactivewealth.com. And he specializes in providing individuals and financial professionals with comprehensive asset management solutions through a tactical robo-advisory platform. So we are going to find out all of that's about, what Joseph has to tell us about what he's learned and how he's grown. So Joseph, glad to be speaking with you.
Likewise, happy to be here, Robert.
So I kind of gave you a little bit of an intro, but to just kind of get us all up to speed, what are you all about? What's the elevator pitch? How are you unique? What problem do you solve?
Well, the elevator pitch with all that, that's really interesting. Well, first and foremost, I'm not a single entrepreneur. This is a couple of different businesses in at this point. So, you can call that a serial entrepreneur or not. But the funny thing is, this is just one of the best ones that I've had the most success in recently. So really excited about it. Happens to be in the finance business, which is always a good business to be in. But I love technology. I love finding solutions for people and finding a way to connect people one way or the other. And that's what we're doing.
Wonderful. And so am I assuming right, you train financial advisors, or like who do you help? What do you solve?
Yeah, so our primary business is B2B. So we actually service other independent financial advisors, and we help support them. We want them to grow and connect with their clients in a more meaningful way, especially because the landscape keeps changing for them. And, the way the financial industry is changing for the way consumers engage with financial advisors, rapidly expanding. So we're trying to help solve some of those problems that advisors have for growing and scaling their own business. Which isn't that much different from somebody who's just trying to grow and scale any other type of business out there. But financial advisors have a really difficult time because it's also a highly regulated market. So we help them do that. We help them navigate the regulations, and we're trying to build other avenues for them to find ways to engage and find new prospects, leads, and clients.
Wonderful. And so where are these independent financial advisors stuck? If say, one of them is watching or listening right now, maybe they don't even know how outpaced they are as far as their competitors. Or maybe they don't even know how far behind they are. So what problems are they facing? Is it just a matter of they're like too out of date, not enough automation? Like, where are these people stuck?
All of the above. One, they're still trying some of the techniques that they were trained to do 20 years ago. They're trying to join some of the local networking groups, or they're just trying to get referral business, because referral business is usually the easiest business because somebody said, hey, this person's good. And then there you go. You got a new client. What they're not capitalizing on and what they're really struggling with is evolving in today's digital space. They're not building brands online. They're not really differentiating themselves from everybody else that's in the entire business. I always say there's this comparison where every single wealth manager has the same mountain as a background, or the same retired looking couple as a background. Nobody is different from the other person. So they don't know how to, at least in the digital landscape, differentiate themselves and interact with people online. Social media is a completely new field for them. Just a few years ago, they were allowed to finally start having people comment on social media because regulations prohibited them from doing so. And it's still the Wild West for how do they engage with people. You're lucky if an advisor may have a LinkedIn, but if they have a Facebook, they don't know how to utilize it. They sure as heck don't know how to use Twitter, or X now. And they're definitely not on anything beyond that. So just growing their presence online, using some of the tactics that you can use with digital automation too, having some certain marketing systems in their back pocket, things like that. They're just really far behind in all these different areas.
And so, being far behind is not all bad, right? Because it means that a lot of these other competitors are far behind, are just as far behind. So if they can pick up some of these techniques that you can share with them, then they can just kind of increase their business pretty quickly, right? And so, like when you mention about some of these things like digital marketing, what comes to mind are things like you mentioned, they're barely on a couple of platforms. I know that you, Joseph, just before this call, I was looking and you're on YouTube, you're on TikTok, and so a lot, like you said, a lot of these people don't get that you be yourself, you communicate, you put out the content, you differentiate. If someone is looking into you, they can get to know your personality. You put out and rank for all the different sort of keywords. Maybe there's the sliding into the DMs, as the kids say, or they get on your website and there's the opting in and entering their email address and getting on a whole marketing funnel. And so there's so much to think about. And as you said, like a lot of them are kind of backwards, but what's a good sort of starting point? Like what's the low-hanging fruit, or what should some of these financial advisors just do in like maybe the next like 30 days? What's doable?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I would actually say the first thing they should do is create their own website. And what I mean by that is create their personal website, because they are the brand. They're the people, they're the person that someone's buying into for these services. It's a very one-on-one service model in the financial business. I mean, you're really getting intimate with somebody's entire, financial needs in order to help them. But, I have josephgissy.com, and that tells my story, gives my background, and then it links out to everything else from there. But you're going to learn about me, and you're going to get my personality, and I can write a blog if I want to write. I can put my content on there that goes out to all the different channels. But an advisor needs to start branding themselves immediately. And that's one thing they don't do because they're worried about this brand, their overall brand, but they're not really showcasing themselves. Then the second phase is, okay, pick a platform. I don't know, which one that's going to necessarily be, because it's different depending upon how you want to, voice, what you're about. But pick one, start working on it, and then get good at it. And then you can start expanding from there. But at least have one that you're on. I'm a big volume person, and I'm also a big, create content that's relevant for the platform itself, because each platform is different. But it took me some time to get there. I didn't just do that overnight. But you have to start with building your personal brand, letting the world know who you are, what you're about, because the first thing people are going to do, they're going to Google your name. And if your website comes up, at least then you have your calling card. I believe that the personal website really is the business card of today, because I can't tell you the last time I've actually handed out a business card. I just tell people to go to josephgissy.com, and there you go. You can connect with me.
Wonderful. So business cards are out of date, but this whole idea of the personal brand and your own website and kind of telling your story and differentiating yourself, that is in. So you're saying that these financial advisors need to kind of think about, well, there's your company brand, but there's also your personal brand. So make that website and tell people about yourself, and then to pick one of these social media platforms and just spend time building it out. Build your profile, add the friends, make the posts, and just get some activity going, so that way you can tell what sort of the rules are and what gets you some sorts of results. And so as far as this whole idea of like a personal website, if a financial advisor says, well, sure, I can go and look at josephgissy.com and kind of see what is on there and use that as a template. But what if they say, like, I'm totally stuck as far as, like, what to say? Where do I begin? Do I talk about, like, my hobbies or my origin story? Like, what if they say I have writer's block when it comes to my personal brand?
Well, you have a bunch of different options for that. I mean, first and foremost, you can put everything you want on there. So if you did want to talk about your hobbies and your personal self, that's fine. That's actually good, because people are trying to connect with you one way or another. You need your voice, and you need yourself and personality to come out. You don't want to create a crazy facade about it. That's going to be disingenuous. You need to make sure that you are you when it comes to building your brand. But there are plenty of tools out there now to create a website. You could outsource it if you don't want to do it yourself, because that does take a lot of time and knowledge. There are plenty of websites out there where you can get some outsourced help. You can hire a marketing company that could do it for you. I have some connections there. If somebody does connect with me, I can point them out into the right directions. But there's plenty of financial marketing companies now that actually specialize in this space, where you can get, a good branded website. They'll work with you on logo design. And, if you sit down with a good marketing agency, then they can sit down and say, let's figure out your brand, your voice, come up with the colors, the imagery, and the things that really represent you well. And that's how you would get started. But gone are the days of you having to sit there and trying to code and do this. And, there's a lot of AI tools out there now that you can utilize to even help you come up with copy and content. I have some thoughts on that as well. But in the meantime, there's plenty of tools out there to help get you started.
And let's keep this kind of thread. Once I get unblurred here, let's keep this thread going. Like you say, like you don't like some of the things that are happening with like AI and content and the shortcuts and just kind of things that like either prevent these financial advisors from getting to the goal or just add to the noise. So there's more distractions every day, right? And sometimes someone says, well, this AI tool will do everything for me, and it turns out like it doesn't, and then it ends up like stopping them from even building something. So what are your thoughts as far as if some financial advisor says, okay, I know I need to make the content, but what about all these fancy schmancy AI tools?
Yeah, so AI has been hitting the market by storm, obviously. And the challenge if you start using like ChatGPT to come up with all the content on your website, well, Google is starting to recognize that everything is AI generated, and it actually doesn't help your SEO as much. So you have to be careful with how you use AI when you're using it for your website, because you do want it to rank highly. You could still come up with content. You can use AI to help, come up with ideas, help do research. I use AI a lot to do research, if I'm trying to come up with a topic or I'm using it in the marketing sense. But I don't necessarily want it to write everything for me. If I can't think of the right words, maybe I'll sit there and say, hey, how would you word this? And there are different ways you can use AI from that perspective. But, there are other ways you can get images and things done for you using it as well. But at the end of the day, that's a lot of work to ask of a financial advisor who's really just trying to focus on how do I get in front of more people, get more prospects in the line, and get more clients. And I would use it for more of an analytical standpoint. Once you start having it in your CRM system, finding out where your areas of opportunity are, that's how I'm employing it. But in order to do your creative, that again, I still believe the human touch is where it's at, and Google rewards those that are still creative that way.
I agree with you 100% that like when I use ChatGPT and these tools, I kind of use it as we work together, right? I don't just say, here, write all this stuff, because it's like, it looks good at first, right? When you say, write a whole article about me in the wealth topic, and then it generates all this stuff, but then when you actually look at some of the sentences, it seems like a middle school report, and it's like there's good information there, but it really needs to be edited down, or like it's good for research and analytical and saying like, generate, like, here's my whole article, help me figure out some keywords or some titles. And so I agree with you there that it's a good assistant, and it's good to kind of have that sounding board to get the ideas, but then don't use it as the crutch. And it also seems like your kind of advice here is that you're a financial advisor already, you're so busy, you have all the stuff that you're doing, and now you're saying, well, I need to learn a website and learn all this marketing. And you're saying, don't put yourself through that. At least talk to a team who can get you to where you need to go. Because just like you've spent your whole life for all these years in the financial advisor world, there are people in like the digital marketing world who they've done it for years. So why not just let them sort of do their jobs? And so it's along those lines. My understanding is that you have these tools, right? Like these kind of robo tools and such to help financial advisors. Is that right?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, we actually have a whole marketing system that helps them from prospecting to funnel management to marketing. And that's on the marketing funnel side, just to get them leads and stuff of that nature. So we have a whole marketing arm at Tactive that does that for our advisors. And that's one of the big support systems. And the robo side of things was more in line of, it was actually created because as I was an advisor and I was trying to connect with more people online, even prior to COVID, I was just trying to figure out ways that I could engage with people at a smaller investment amount than I normally would as an advisor. So, individuals, they may go to, let's say they go to, down to an investment bank right now, or they go to an investment advisor, and that person tells them, well, I can't work with you unless you have $250,000. Well, not everybody has $250,000. Maybe they only have $50,000, and they're saying, hey, I need some financial help. Well, sometimes a robo platform that you can get in at a lower investment amount with lower overhead, lower fees, and then does the automated investing, that might be a good entry point for most consumers and people that are starting out. And at some point, they're going to want that relationship with a financial advisor. So my thought process was, if we can create a robo that's a good product for consumers with a lower investable amount that doesn't need the investment advice today, at some point in the future, they're going to be at the point where they do need that advice. So it connects them with a advisor that's working on our platform when they're ready and when they're ready to take that step. And then for the advisors on our platform, they can use that as a lead funnel to continue to build their business, well off into the future, because people with smaller accounts become people with larger accounts over time. Or maybe they're just trying this out to see, hey, does this work for me or not? And it's a good way to funnel those leads and clients. So that's why we created the Robo over there, was more of a funnel system in a way to just help people out get started without the large overhead and even wanting to talk to a financial advisor off the bat.
Wonderful. And since this is the Scaling Secrets podcast, that fits right in, right? Where otherwise you might be spending all day long with the communication, or it might just not be kind of worth your like hourly dollar rate. You can add in some of this automation, the funneling and the messaging in order to just make that happen and to make your business work and to get more reach and to be more fast paced. And so when you explain some of these ideas to these financial advisors, right? You explain things like the CRM and having all the customer data, or the funnel and kind of nurturing these prospects. Is there any difficulty with them being like out of date? Is there like a communication barrier or a learning curve from them understanding these ideas?
Well, it's not like it's not hard for them to understand the idea, because they get it. I mean, they're always looking for the next available tactic to get prospects. It is a time constraint for them because they don't want to learn a new system, so to speak. They have them, go from something they were previously using to something that they're not using now. Can be a little difficult. I think that most advisors tend to get sticker shock when it comes to marketing. They're the amount of money that they spend on marketing isn't nearly the amount of money they should be spending on marketing, and they don't understand the cost associated when it takes to be successful. And I believe the time that it takes for this stuff to become successful, especially when you're doing digital marketing and brand building. So brand building takes a little bit longer, but it is necessary. And that's how you can build those warm referral networks. And there are ways to layer in other revenue sources that they previously hadn't really thought about that will be available to them once they start building themselves up to this other level. And there are ways they can engage with people that they've never thought about. All that takes time. And for an advisor, spending the money and waiting, a tough thing to do, because depending upon how they're licensed, a lot of it is commission, based products, or, the reward may not be immediately, even if they get a smaller account, but they're always looking for, the large account, and that doesn't turn over as quick. So those two things, I think, are really the challenge for most financial advisors to understand.
And you're saying that many of them are just kind of thinking more old-fashioned, like the networking groups, or just hope they're referrals and hope that someone sort of finds them. And it seems like maybe with all this like digital marketing and things like that, they maybe need to be jumping into more of like a sales prospecting mindset, right? And just kind of like having some leads and working with some leads and talking to them. So is that kind of a problem as far as like, do they sometimes just expect people to come to them without working for it?
We all expect everybody to come to us without working for it, right? That would make our lives that much easier. So I used to do a lot of dinner seminars, and that's what the majority of advisors that are successful and scale their business. And so they had a process for that, but it is a costly time, not only money wise, but also time wise. It's very costly to do those dinner seminars. And what I've seen over the last few years is that, well, not only has the cost of the dinner gone up because of inflation, but they become more costly just to send mailers out to people's houses. And you have to spend more just to get the same number of people into the room who have the same amount, dollars in their account. So your marketing costs on that front are going up, but your profitability is decreasing. So, you really got to be cognizant of that when it comes to how you were traditionally doing it to how you're doing it now in digital. And what I'm trying to show advisors with the digital means is that there can be a quicker turnaround if you set everything up properly, but it is still going to take, anywhere from 30, 60 days in order to actually set yourself up the right way. But once you do, it does become automated, and you can start scaling it, and you can start having a good lead source, a good funnel system, but you do need the systems in place. And I think that's where the patience also gets missed, because they'll try to do it on their own, or they'll just, kind of haphazardly do it. And without the right systems where things can be automated, it's going to be very burdensome, and it's going to be hard to keep up, with the amount of leads, and how do you nurture those leads, and what content do you pass those leads, and when do you engage with them? Are you going to talk with them on Zoom, phone, email? There's all these other considerations that most advisors don't think about, and they just need some help with.
Wonderful. And so it's definitely making a lot of sense in a couple of ways. That I like your kind of like numbers and like factors based mindset, right? You're saying that, well, there's like the cost per lead, and there's like how much they'll buy, and there's the turnaround time, and there's the amount that you'll spend and do these things. And so some of the numbers are decreasing and some of the numbers aren't increasing. So the math equation requires some new techniques. And so what we need to be, and also there's also that aspect of, well, if someone kind of hears some of these things and says they make a funnel and they don't kind of set it up fully or properly, or if there is some kind of debugging of the system to be done, they can't just look at it and see, well, maybe there's something wrong with the content, or I need to fix up the copy on the landing page. Maybe they don't see that because they're just not immersed in it. Like someone like you can look at it and be like, here, change this or fix this in your funnel. Then they get stuck, they get discouraged, they give up because they did too much of trying it on their own. And it's like, trying it on your own is great, but then if it doesn't work out, then maybe go and get some help from an outside source. And so this is all wonderful to think about. One thing I want to make sure that we touch on is you mentioned a little bit about there are some things that financial advisors like haven't even thought of, right? Like you said, like the revenue streams that they haven't even thought of. And so we can focus on that, or just in general, like, is there something that comes to mind that if a financial advisor is watching or listening right now and you're saying, hey, I'm Joseph Gissy, and there's something that you have not thought of, does anything come to mind as far as just hasn't even crossed their mind yet?
Yeah, all the time. It's interesting. You much more creative than you give yourself credit for. You can actually put an educational course together, which people would actually pay you money to come see. There are plenty of 20-year-olds out there that are capitalizing on this. They have these courses, and they're making good amount of money on it, and they may not have the expertise that you do. Actually, I'll pivot back to one thing. I believe that the financial advisors are also getting their butts kicked by the 20, 30-year-olds who do not have the financial license, but have become the financial gurus online. And the advisors really need to understand that, and they really need to start capitalizing on that. So they need to become, the ones, because they got the license. They've also been through the markets. They've also been through all the scenarios with real clients, with real wealth. So they know what's coming. But they can put educational courses together. They can monetize on their social media if they get big enough. They could have speaking engagements where they can then become an expert. There are doors that open up for you when you do this properly, and you can monetize on that. And then there are other ways you can price services within your business. I can't list them all, but there are other, interesting ways you can come up with other services inside your financial model that won't cost people an arm and a leg, but it does drive engagement with you. And you get somebody's foot in the door. Maybe you only do it for $100, but at least now they know who you are. They've engaged with you on a smaller level, so it's a smaller buy-in. And then you're hoping to get the bigger buy-in down the road. And you put them in your nurturing system that hopefully you have automated, and it continues to prospect or drip on them over time.
Wonderful. So this is all a lot of kind of outside the box stuff and ideas, but also common sense at the same time, right? That, as you said at the beginning, is that people don't know who you are, and it's up to you to kind of put it out there and to say a few things. And this whole idea of having the course, it's a wonderful idea in a bunch of ways, right? Because this is, as you said, like the foot in the door. Maybe someone buys the course and they get a few ideas, or they make a little bit of progress. And then over time when they're older and have more money to spend, or just when they trust you more and you've delivered the value that no one else has. And then there's also that aspect of, sometimes I'm this way where if I want to hire someone for a task, if they have a product or a course, I'll buy that first just to see if they even know what the heck they're talking about. So there's all kinds of paths into just get more of these leads, get more of these people, and help more of these people. And so if there is one of those frustrated, independent financial advisors who's watching or listening right now, and they say, man, this guy Joseph Gissy, he gave me a lot of ideas, and I'm really jazzed and I'm pumped, and I want to take the next step, and I want to see more of what he's all about, his socials or his website or his company. What do you think is the logical next step? Where should someone go after watching our show right now?
Yeah, just go to Simple, josephgissy.com. So just make sure you spell my last name, Gissy, correct. But josephgissy.com, you can contact me on there. You can connect with me through any of the social channels I'm on there. We're producing more and more content. We're doing more and more podcasts. We're actually starting podcasts that we're going to start interviewing advisors and giving them a voice as well. So there are a lot of things we can do, but just connect with me and then we can take it from there. I can either show you, where you can go if I can't help you, or maybe there is a way I can help you with your journey.
Wonderful. JosephGissy.com. And this is the man who you should aspire to be more like, to model, because he's doing more of these kind of above and post scarcity activities, right? You have the website, you have the YouTube channel, you're on podcasts such as this one, you're doing all these things to raise your profile in order to get more of the word out and get more traffic and leads, instead of just struggling and instead of just going through the motions, instead of going through the day-to-day, you're doing these things to grow and scale your business, which is what this show is all about. And so that's wonderful to think about and wonderful for you as a independent financial advisor to look into by going to josephgissy.com. And so as we're wrapping up our conversation here, Joseph, I think it's always fun to end in a important quote or moral or lesson that really hit you home with you at some point in your life. That way we get a real good feel about who you are and kind of wrap up the conversation. So what jumps out in your mind right now if I ask you for a helpful quote, moral, or lesson that's really helped you?
Yeah, we didn't talk about this before, but I always have one in mind. It's a quote from The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. It says, failure will never overtake me if my will to succeed is great enough. So that's what I've always lived by. I'm always striving for success one way or another, but that's my favorite quote in the world.
I love it. Failure will never overtake me if my will to succeed is strong enough. And we should be embedding that into our minds as we go to josephgissy.com right now. And Joseph, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, Robert. Thanks for having me on.